Los Angeles for the majority of 2023. This is Soleil.
Hey everybody.
Hey.
Welcome to Seen and Heard. This is the podcast where two entertainment assistants go through the Sight and Sound top 100 greatest films of all time list. I'm Greg.
I'm Jackie.
And we're here this week, back on the ping pong schedule after doing a very, very personal print last week. We did my favorite film of all time, Midnight Cowboy.
Some might say.
Too personal, too close to the heart. If you haven't heard our Midnight Cowboy episode, go back, take a listen. But this week, we're here for Chris Marker's Soleil from 1983. Also, just as a quick plug, tomorrow, Wednesday, our Patreon poll closes for our S'mores episode for this month. So we're between two films. The poll is up. We're between Mario Bava's Black Sunday and Roger Corman's Mask of the Red Death. So we're going 60s goth for our S'mores episode for this month, for our July S'mores. So if you haven't voted, if you haven't weighed in, go check it out. Go check out the poll and cast your vote for which one you'd like us to cover.
How exciting.
I know you're super amped.
I am.
Honestly, you'll like both of those movies. I'm convinced.
Mask of the Red Death.
Don't say that, because last time someone changed their vote because you came on here and you swayed votes. Anyway, Jackie, what have you been watching lately?
For 4th of July weekend, I decided to have an Eric Rohmer summer double feature.
I saw that.
It was so nice. It was so nice. Like, I wish I could just do that every weekend, just pair two Rohmer movies. But I watched A Tale of Summer, which is part of his, or no, it's called A Summer's Tale. My bad. Which is part of his 4 seasons. What do you call like a trilogy with 4 movies?
Quadrilogy?
Quadrilogy.
I think.
I watched that, and I watched The Green Ray. So both like summer in France, lonely people vacationing, beautiful scenery, a carefree attitude, just really breezy and lovely movies. There's not much I can say about them that hasn't been said. I mean, they're great. Have you seen either of them?
You know what? I have not. And I just want to shout out to my friend Frida, who's also in the film club. And The Green Ray is like, she's talked it up so much on the
I kind of liked The Green Ray a little more. Like,
it's like one of her favorite movies.
I was trying to decide which one I liked more because I loved both of them. I think I might like Green Ray like slightly more, but then no, the other one is really good too. I don't know. Both excellent, great summer movies. I rewatched Personal Shopper 2 nights ago because I'd only seen it once. Have you rewatched it?
You know what? I might have only seen it the one time.
You know, I love it so much, but you can't quite beat. No, I'm not saying anything. There's nothing bad to say. It's an amazing movie, but there's nothing quite like watching it for the first time.
You don't know where it's going to go, and
you don't know where it's going to go. That scene. I mean, the scene in the window.
Without spoiling it.
Incredible.
Yes, the famous scene in the window.
It's so good. With a glass. That's all I'm gonna say.
I actually don't know what scene you're talking about. I'll have to rewatch.
Wait, are you serious?
Yeah, because I saw it when it first came out. I saw it. I need to rewatch. Yeah.
But I watched it with my sister because we wanted something to watch, and I suggested it because she likes fashion and she likes Chanel.
Case 2?
Yeah, she likes Case 2. She hated the movie.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
It literally ended and she turned to me and said, I hated it.
Oh, no.
Like, what? Anyway, I don't want to throw her under the bus, but I just thought it was hilarious because I was like so into it and I was like, oh my God. And then she was like, she completely didn't work for her.
I mean, I get it. It's a very kind of it's a film where the entire film is like in a minor key. You know, it's
yeah. And if you don't have someone explaining to you, like a lot of the plot stuff is a little wishy-washy, which is fine. Like I don't care
because it deals with ghosts.
Yeah, not even the ghost. I think more the whole like her job and that man and the boss and I don't know. Anyway, what have you been watching?
Well, I did see, I know I've talked about this on previous episodes that I was going to see this. I did see the new Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
How was it?
So I saw this opening night, IMAX City Walk.
Fun.
Had the full City Walk experience. We went to Buca de Beppo first.
That was going to be my next question.
You know what? I think that was my first time at Buca de Beppo.
What?
Yeah, I think it was my first time.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, you're not missing much.
No. Kind of overpriced for what it is, which is perfectly fine.
But it's share, like you share it.
Yeah, it's all family style, but Maggiano's does that too, and Maggiano's is definitely a cut above.
Yeah, I mean, the food at Buca de Beppo's not.
Yeah, it was perfectly fine. It was part of the whole City Walk experience.
It is, yeah.
So you know what? To my surprise, I mostly liked it. My bar was very low because the first two Indiana Jones movies mean the world to me. They're some of my favorite movies ever. I'll say the first three. I like Last Crusade a lot too, but I hate Crystal Skull. And people are coming back around now and being like, actually, you know what? Crystal Skull's good. Like, just give it another watch. I'm like, I've given it a watch every couple years since it came out, and I hate it more every time I see it. It's a piece of trash. I hate it. It's not good. Stop saying it's good. This one, so my bar was low. It's like, this just needs to be better than Crystal Skull. It is leagues better than Crystal Skull.
Wow.
Of course, it comes nowhere near touching the original three. But you know what? For a movie that didn't need to be made, that was made by Disney, this was pretty good. It had a soul. Phoebe Waller-Bridge is in it. She's great. Harrison Ford gives a kind of lived-in, honest performance. And the MacGuffin's cool. Mads Mikkelsen as the villain was cool. And without spoiling anything, there's something that happens in the last act that's been very divisive. And I loved that it just took a risk, and I was totally down with like where it went. And I really like the story of this. It's a little bloated. There's way too much CG. The de-aging stuff looks absolutely horrific. Terrible. It's like you're watching a video game. But once you move past that, it's a weird thing where like the movie started and I was shaking my head physically at the screen because I was pissed off at like certain choices it was making. So the movie was losing me. And then at a certain point, it just started winning me over. And slowly I was more in it. And then I swear to God, Jackie, I don't know what came over me. But in the final, like when the end credits started rolling, I was not even just crying. It's the most I've ever cried in a movie. I was like actively sobbing. Like my shoulders were heaving because I was trying to hide it. Like my shoulders were heaving.
Fuck up.
So like for that alone, look, I was incredibly moved. No, I'm not going to say, no spoilers. I'm not going to say what happens. I'm just going to say they give him a nice send off. And I was so moved by the ending. And I was like, sometimes you don't realize how something's going to hit you until it does. And I think for a lot of us of a certain age, like Indiana Jones was our childhoods. I've said on this podcast before that especially Temple of Doom is like the movie I grew up on. Like that is the one where like I've seen it more than any other film. Raiders too, like I'm obsessed with those movies. And Harrison Ford is such a staple of our childhoods, especially like as that character. And so to just see him get this kind of like this closing chapter that was really satisfying was like a very moving experience.
I'm shocked.
Recommend the movie, even though again it has its issues. It has quite a few issues.
I'm really shocked.
But the good overweighs the bad big time. Yeah.
I can't believe you were crying.
Oh yeah, full on crying. And for like 10 minutes, I like couldn't stop.
Oh my God. Who'd you see it with?
Molly.
Just her? Was she just patting your shoulder?
Yeah. Yeah, it's never happened to me that way before. And then also because I saw that I rewatched The Mosquito Coast with Harrison Ford, the Peter Weir film, which is great. I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it holds up really well. And it's like a great dramatic performance by Harrison Ford, where he plays like a really unlikable character, and he's great in it. So that was my week.
That sounds big.
You should see it. You should see Indiana Jones. Honestly, recommend.
I've been rewatching them just in the hope.
That's right. You have been. Yeah.
Actually, I haven't seen Crystal Skull.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Again.
Just go see the new one.
No, I think I will. I might as well. I watched the first three.
It's terrible.
I know, but like.
If anything, it'll set the bar low for the new one.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, should we get into this week's movie?
Sure. This is number 69 on the 2012 list, and it's number 59 on the 2022 list.
Oh, okay. So it rose.
It rose 5 spots.
Cool.
I'm sorry, 10.
10.
What's wrong with me?
Wow. From 1983, this is Chris Marker's Sans Soleil.
Sans Soleil was released in 1983. It was written and directed by Chris Marker. The film was shot by Marker, and he also wrote the music. However, he uses aliases for both of these credits. He calls the composer Michel Krasna and the cinematographer Sandor Krasna. The only indication to Marker in the credits of the film is at the very end with conception and editing Chris Marker.
Yeah.
That's his only credit. He also went so far as to write biographies. They're apparently brothers, Michel and Sandor.
Did he really?
And he went so far as to write a biography of Sandor, at least.
Oh my God.
Because he's like the main character. The film is a travelogue / film essay of the fictional cinematographer, Sandor Krasna. A female narrator reads and paraphrases letters she has received from Sandor over footage taken in Japan, Guinea-Bissau, Cape Verde, Iceland, Paris, and San Francisco. The film also includes stock footage and clips from other films and Japanese television. Some stock footage was processed with an EMS Spectre video synthesizer by the artist Hayao Yamaniko. The English language version of the film opens with a quote from the poem Ash Wednesday by T.S. Eliot. And it goes, "Because I know that time is always time, and place is always and only place." The film goes on to explore questions of time, memory, history, spirituality, and civilization, mainly juxtaposing these topics within the context of Japanese and Guinea-Bissau society. The film is bookmarked with footage he captured of 3 Icelandic children walking up a hill in 1965, which is the filmmaker's idea of happiness. It was composed mostly in the 1970s while Marker traveled extensively. The film's title is borrowed from the name of a song in a song cycle by Russian composer Modest Mussorgsky. In one of Sandor's letters, he describes the kind of science fiction film he would want to make about a man from the future who sings this very old song but cannot feel its meaning. He calls the would-be film Sunless or Sans Soleil. The film was shot on a 16mm Bolo camera, not to be confused with Bolex. This is like the French Bolex. The film was played at the 1983 Berlin Film Festival and won the Sutherland Trophy at the 1983 BFI Awards. It was voted the 3rd greatest documentary of all time by a Sight and Sound critics list in 2014. So number 1 was Man with a Movie Camera. Number 2 was Showa. Number 3 was Sans Soleil. That's all I got for specs. You can't really summarize this movie.
Well, I have one additional spec. It was, I think the first official showing was actually at a Round Table Pizza in Grand Rapids.
Where's Grand Rapids?
Michigan, I think.
Why Grand Rapids? I forgot about that. Very important piece.
I know. How could you leave that out?
Do you like Round Table? Not to
you know what?
Off topic.
This is the episode for going off topic. Because this movie is so open-ended, right?
Yeah.
I have not had it since I was a kid, but I was recently. Oh, did you? How was it?
Good.
Okay. So many birthday parties there as a kid. I was trying to convince my friends to go because there's one in South Pasadena, and we didn't go.
I suggest it. I highly rec.
All right.
I was shocked because it was like delivery, and I was like, "Where is this from?" And they were like, Round Table. And I was like, what?
Does it still taste the same?
I don't remember. I don't think I had it that much as a kid. I never really remembered it.
Oh, okay. I have a lot of nostalgia for it.
It was good. You should go.
I should get a round table pizza, then go see Indiana Jones again.
Yeah. The ultimate nostalgia fest.
So, Jackie, Chris Marker.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of his films before this?
I've seen La Jetee.
Oh, you've seen La Jetee. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen the film that's a remake of La Jetee? Or should I say not remake, but an expansion of La Jetee?
No.
12 Monkeys, the Terry Gilliam film.
I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm. But that's for another. Is La Jetee on the list? Actually,
yes.
No. Oh, we'll talk about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
They often get mixed together because they're his two most prominent films. And if you have the Criterion for this, like I do, it's literally like a double bill. It's like La Jetee / Soleil.
Got it.
But
so, yes, I've only seen this and La Jetee. I was going to say though, when I was talking about my specs, just a little bit about him. Like previously, before he made this movie, he was a Marxist, and before this, he founded a society for launching new works.
Knights of the Round Table?
No, wait, that's what it's actually called. It's literally called Society for Launching New Works. Sorry, I don't know why I'm so frazzled. In which he gave up his own personal film career to make politically left-wing films. So like that's what he was doing. And then that's why that's kind of the reason, and we'll talk more about this, of this like giving up his identity for this movie, because after that he traveled extensively in the 70s, and that's when he made this. Like he made that, I think, after like the May 68, like what was going on in France.
Well, too, like
a little bit.
He didn't shoot this whole film too. At the end credits, they say certain sequences, like the giraffe, and there's some other stuff. There's some other like there's some like ceremonial stuff that he didn't shoot, but most of it he did.
The giraffe was really hard to watch.
Honestly, that pissed me off because it's in there to just kind of provoke. I don't know. Yeah,
I'm glad he didn't shoot it.
Yeah,
but still, it was really, really.
I just like don't need to see that.
What is with sight and sound movies? There's something about it.
A lot of these like prestige art films from other places are all just filled with animal death. Yeah,
I know.
None have been as worse as Tuki Buki, though. That has been like the absolute
Tuki
most
Buki's
horrific.
Probably been the worst, but this draft made me really upset. Like really upset, actually.
Yeah.
What a poetic experience. I really liked it.
How would it compare to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish?
Blows it out of the water.
Really?
I can confidently say.
But that was the greatest film of our times.
This blows it away. What can I say? I'm working on something like kind of similar, but not really. So I was really excited while I was watching it. And then I was like, oh shit. Like I should have done this and I should have done that.
You still have time though.
I still have time. I don't know. Yeah, but I don't know. I just more fearless, I think. I'm also going to Japan in October. I've even thought about taking my Super 8 camera with me. You should. Japan.
You just have to be careful with the X-rays at airports with the film.
I know, but this movie really like
you have to get it like hand inspected. Yeah,
convinced me to. But then it might be a pain in the ass. I don't know.
You just have to have them hand inspect the film. It can't go through the X-ray. That's all.
Okay.
It's fine. People do it all the time. It's okay.
But I was gonna pack it in. I wasn't gonna put it in my carry-on.
Well, you'll have to take it out of your bag and hand it to them at the airport at security.
Oh, you have to put it in your carry-on.
Well, you know what? I think it can still be checked. They just have to it can't go through the X-ray. Sorry.
Okay, so did you notice that the bar that he goes to in the movie? Do you know about the La Jetee bar?
No.
Oh my God. Okay, so while I was watching the movie, sorry, this is a bit of a tangent again. Tangent episode. While I was watching the movie, you know when he's in that little bar? And he mentions he's like in the little bar. I have the quote. I'm going to read it later because I think it's actually really important. There's pictures of La Jetee on the wall.
Oh, I didn't even know.
You didn't notice it? So I noticed it immediately and I Googled it. And sure enough, there is a bar in Tokyo called La Jetee. It's still open, run by the same woman who opened it in 74, I believe. And Quentin Tarantino goes there. Wim Wenders has been there. Coppola. They have bottles there. She keeps their bottles.
Their brand of alcohol?
No, what they like to drink. Regulars, if you're a regular there's certain spots on the wall for your bottle. It's super small. Can only seat like 12 people max. So I will be going to this bar. I'm so glad I watched this movie before I went to Japan. It's run by this woman. She's a cinephile. She speaks French and Japanese and apparently no English. So an even better reason for me to brush up on my French a little bit.
Yeah.
But she just has this bar and it's like super cozy and there's movie posters all over and he's been there. He went there in the movie. So I'm really excited about that. But this is an extremely dense movie. Like there were moments when I got really lost in what was being said. But I think that's kind of the point. Like it's almost like he wants to give you a headache and overload you with information. And then what you remember and what you pick and choose is like what's important to kind of just emphasize the whole point of the movie. But I realized when I was done that I recall the things that were said more than the things that I saw, like the prose.
Interesting.
More than the images, actually.
I'm the opposite.
That's really interesting. I loved all the references to other movies. And yeah, overall, it's just this overwhelming humanitarian type of thing. And it's like, it's about like the unseen and the seen in equal measure, because it is like the things we're hearing and the things we're seeing. And it's almost contradictory. Like the unseen under the things that we're seeing, and the unseen is what we're hearing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like pondered and philosophized with these letters. And yeah, it's like memories are unseen. Spirits and traditions and history, these are all things that we don't see. Even the opening, like seeing people asleep on the ferry, that made him think of war. Like it's just this really interesting meditation on the things that are, as I've said several times, unseen and seen.
Unseen and unheard.
But heard,
Just
and
kidding.
the way that but that's the point of the letters, I think, is this device of like philosophizing the unseen.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's how I feel about it.
Nice. So simple thoughts, basically.
I thought very deeply about this movie. I think that's the point.
Yeah.
What about you? What are your initial thoughts?
Well,
I know that was our initial, but I got a little deep. But
no. Yeah, this is my third time seeing it.
Wow.
Probably first saw this about 10 years ago.
Always the standard.
And then I saw this again last year, just about a year ago, because we did it for the film club. We did a month of film essays, and this was our last one.
Can you rec some other good ones?
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that today.
Yeah, well, that month we did one called All Light Everywhere, which is pretty good. We did one. Wow, now I'm drawing a blank.
That's okay. Continue your initial thoughts.
So yeah, it's my third time seeing this. The first time I saw it 10 years ago, it was too much for me, and I kind of checked out. Last year, when we did it for the film club, I liked it a lot, and I was like, "Oh my god, I saw this movie too early, and I didn't fully appreciate it." And I really loved it. Mm-hmm. This time. It's so interesting because we just did Showa, and it's not fair to compare. They're completely different films. But I feel like Showa has ruined so many nonfiction pieces of filmmaking for me.
Fair.
Just in terms of Claude Lanzmann's approach to that material, and we talked heavily about him not getting in the way of the film, and him obviously this is different. This is a film essay. Is images conjured in support of the thesis, right? Whereas like telling the story of the Holocaust, Claude Lanzmann is just presenting. It's a piece of historical document. Witness, exactly. But his approach to that like really, really ruined me on other nonfiction movies. So coming back to this week, I wasn't as enthused as I was a year ago, where I was like, oh my God, this is great. It's totally not fair to compare this to Showa because they are so different. But I felt a little less enthused. And again, maybe it's because I've been so busy lately, and we've done a lot of stuff for the podcast recently. We have a lot coming up. I've just been busy. And so maybe I wasn't in the complete right headspace to watch this last night when I did. But I feel like this movie is wondrous and rapturous and really thoughtful and beautiful and tragic and all these things, but I think that it goes on a little too long. And I think he's like a little too in love with like the zone computer imagery, which I think is just a little bit of like, I feel like that stuff just goes on too long of like, okay, cool, bro. You're playing with your toys. But I love his whole thesis. Very early on, you were talking about that boat scene, right? And he says in the narration is, only banality still interests me. And I love that idea. And I love that that's what so much of this film is.
Yes.
And as someone who does love to travel, and I like to go to new places I haven't been, and I like to learn about other cultures and places and stuff, so much of this film is so great at just those little details, especially, it spends a lot of time in specifically Tokyo. And just like, when the women turn 20 and like the gift bags they get, and there's just all these like little cool things and like the cool details, especially from the 70s or early 80s. You get the JFK animatronic in like a mall, and there's all these just cool things. There's the cat shrine. Actually, our friend Daisuke, who we had on for our Godfather episode, he went to the cat shrine that's in this movie, and he took a picture with like the Criterion Blu-ray, and then like Criterion posted it or something.
Aww.
Like earlier this year, I think it was.
That's so cute.
Yeah, but it's an interesting thing because I think at an hour 45, it's just slightly too long for what it is. And again, I know that he has a lot of things on his mind here, and he's trying to get a lot across. And a lot of his thoughts, I was enraptured by so much of the narration of just like original thinking. And I thought a lot of the ideas expressed were really thoughtful. But it's just a little, it's a smidge too long. And I resented, also, like we just talked about, I resented seeing the giraffe killed and stuff. And not that this needs to be like all pleasant and stuff, but it just was, I don't know. You stick a scene like that in front of someone, and obviously he went out of his way to, like, he acquired the footage of these hunters killing this giraffe and the vultures like pecking its eyes out and stuff. It's just, I don't know. It just feels a little like try hard of like a little like cool bro. Like, but so much of this film is so beautiful. I still really like it. I just like the last time I saw it, I was like really elated, and this time I liked it just like a little bit less. So, and I think that's kind of par for the course with a film like this. That's it's not a narrative, and it's not even really something like Koyaanisqatsi, which is those types of films are kind of like a symphony. This obviously is based on, like you said, the spoken word and the text.
Yeah. It really is overwhelmingly so sometimes. And it's like, it's not as rhythmic. Like I was trying to think, the only like, I don't see it as very symphonic. Like I don't see it as like, we're matching, okay, you're going to see this and then I'm going to match it with this. Like that doesn't happen that often. In fact, the only one that comes to my mind is like the president waving on the canoe and then the now president. And then also when he's talking about the kamikazes, and then it matches with like a very peaceful image of like out a plane window.
Yeah.
Does anything else pop out to you as like matching like that, or kind of like working together, complementing?
I think a lot of it flows really well.
It flows. No,
and
of
sometimes
course it flows.
You don't notice the way that he's matching because it's done so effortlessly.
Definitely. Like we have like the robot. Yeah, like okay, like those robots, and then the JFK robot.
Yeah.
Like things like that. I mean, I guess there are, but like it's not like Man with a Movie Camera.
Right. In the way that Man with a Movie Camera is
very symphonic.
Right.
Orchestral and like
there's,
matching and like.
Well, it's funny because in terms of the soundtrack too, there is music throughout this film.
Yeah.
But it never quite overtakes the movie.
Right.
In the way that some of those other films do.
Right.
Obviously, Man with a Movie Camera is a silent film, but
yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about, again, it's not fair, but we did just see Showa and we did just do Showa. How do you, did that come to mind at all, or was it a completely different experience?
Completely different.
Yeah.
It didn't even cross my mind.
That's good.
So let's talk about, I feel like if you're going to pull anything from this movie, like I think that the major thing is this idea of like subjective memory. Like that is like, that's the thesis to me. Like what he says about like, he says, remembering is not the opposite of forgetting. Rather, it's lining. We rewrite memory the way we rewrite history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the main thing I take away from this movie is just that function of memory.
Yeah. No, I like that.
And I love what he says about like, because everything else follows that. Like everything he says about filmmaking, everything he says about like, I don't like the spirituality of the Japanese people and these kind of like non-tangible, unseen things. I feel like it all just kind of flows from that. Like I love what he says when he says, I remember the images I filmed. They have substituted themselves for my memory. They are my memory. I wonder how people remember without taking pictures.
Yeah, beautiful.
And this, of course, goes into like his big thing about filmmaking, right?
Right.
And like that's so present in the movie. And it not only filmmaking itself, but like the function of filmmaking as a memory machine. Like even though filmmaking seems like photography, let's not call it filmmaking, let's call it like pure photography. Like it seems objective. I almost feel like I think that the movie is trying to tell us like it's not. Everything is subjective.
Right, it never can be,
and it's almost like contradictory, but I think it's like about the balance. Like for example, like when he's talking about in history, there's a chapter on like the history of Guinea-Bissau, and it's like the president who is decorating that one soldier, and that's like old footage, right? And then, but what we're hearing actually is like, oh, that man is not crying because he's being awarded the medal. He's crying because he wants to be president, who would then overthrow him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was like really, really cool.
Yeah.
But then, of course, like it goes into so much more of filming, like this idea of filmmaking and like the power of filmmaking. There's a lot to ponder.
There's a lot to ponder. There's almost too much for one podcast.
Oh my God, totally. I love what he says about, do you remember this? He says, frankly, have you ever heard anything stupider than to say to people as they teach in film schools,
don't look
not
at the camera.
To look at the camera.
That's one of the best sequences
That's one of the
in the
best
movie.
sequences in the movie because, of course, like that is how he's going to remember. And that is memory for him. Like in the marketplace with that woman. He's not just taking a picture of this woman in a marketplace. Like he's having a whole dialogue in his head about like, it's such a fine line. Like, I think she saw me, but I don't know if she did. And she's trying to play it off like she didn't. Yeah. And I love that sequence. Yeah. I love it.
That's one of the best sequences. I think that attributes to why I think that this is a little bit of a mixed bag for me. Is like you have stuff like that that's like so human and profound. Mm-hmm. And then there are stretches that I think he's like a little too in his own head.
Like what?
I will say that I think there's a couple instances, and I wonder if you picked up on this at all or if you felt this way, but of him coming into another world, another land, and not disrespectful, but because most of the movie's Japan, right? And he does talk about like how he feels at home there and stuff. Mm-hmm. But then I feel like he's also kind of condescending. Like there's literally a line where he says like these yellow men or these little yellow men or something that felt kind of gross.
Yeah, I caught that.
And it's like a couple instances of like, oh, look at this weird tradition. And I know that like it's mostly endearing, but there's just a few instances that turn me off like that.
I don't know if he said a weird tradition. I don't think he called any tradition weird.
No, it doesn't use the word weird. I think he's mostly fascinated by all of it, but it kind of felt to me at sometimes like he was looking at it through like a glass, like an aquarium kind of thing, like poking the glass, like, oh, look at this in here. Like mostly loving, but also like, I mean, come on, this is 1983 to say like these yellow men or something is like so not okay.
Yeah.
Especially when it's literally a nonfiction film.
Yeah.
And I know he created this
Sandor.
Yeah, this character for the words to come out of, but they are his words. And again, if this movie was made in the 40s, it would get get a pass or something. But 1983,
yeah,
it felt like a little gross.
Yeah.
So there's just a couple moments like that where it kind of took me out. That the giraffe, a couple other things that the zone computer imagery that was just like again.
But I love what he says about the zone imagery.
What does he say?
Do you know what he said? Let me find it. It's less deceptive than what you see on TV. They proclaim to be images, not reality. And that goes back to the creative aspect of history and like being rewritten and everything being subjective. Like on TV, they're claiming to just be reality.
Sure.
And that's deceptive because nothing can just be reality.
Yeah.
So like I like what the zone stands for. Yes. Do I think it goes on a little long? Perhaps. But I like that he personally attacks TV. That's not that he does it like this is his section about talking about TV.
Right. There's the whole sequence too where he's like watching Japanese TV
for a whole day.
Yeah.
And he talks about like the sad fate of comic book heroines and heartless story writers and castrating censorship.
He talks about how after a while you feel like Japanese TV is watching you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then he talks about like the magical function of the eye as the center of all things. Again, going back to this idea of like capturing images and memories and the election candidate blacking out the eye. That part's rhythmic.
Yeah, it is.
But then he goes back because at the end he's like, I recall the face of the woman in the marketplace. So that just is like tying it all kind of back together.
I like all the recurring imagery. Yeah, there's that. There's the three Swedish girls.
Yeah.
There's
Icelandic.
Yeah. Like those images coming back throughout are really powerful.
Yeah. And then there's the actual film references. So he references 4 movies on the Sight and Sound list.
There's 4?
Yeah. Mirror, Vertigo.
Wait, where's Mirror?
He's talking about The Zone.
That's Stalker.
Oh my God, yeah. My bad. Stalker, Vertigo, Apocalypse Now, and La Jetee.
Oh, his own film.
His own film.
That's fine. That's right. Apocalypse Now.
He talks about the horror.
Yeah. And it's important to note, too, that when this film came out in 1983, Apocalypse Now was only like 4 years old.
But I think it's so interesting because that is how he, like, this reflects how, like, he himself uses film to understand these concepts.
Right.
And I think it's actually really nice and personal in a very, like, kind of impersonal. I mean, he's trying so hard to be impersonal. Just the fact that he's so chock full of these movie references.
No, I mean, I love it. That's how my brain works too. You know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I understand the world more through films. Like
Exactly,
I love that.
Exactly. And I love that about it. And
so we actually have episodes on 3 of those.
Yes, we do.
Apocalypse Now, Stalker, and Vertigo.
Yes. Do you know what he says about Vertigo? He says only one film had been capable of portraying impossible, insane memory.
Yeah.
And I love what he said when he's describing the scene in the flower shop. He says, he's talking about Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak. He the hunter, she the prey. Or was it the other way around? I love that. I ate that up. I was like, ooh, yes.
It's, you know, sometimes
I love that.
I think the problem,
love the San Francisco stuff.
I did too. I think sometimes the problem with film essays is someone says something and they drop it like it's a bomb that's supposed to be really profound, and you're just like, yes, of course. Like that's.
Wait a second.
What?
I forgot to credit the narrator.
Oh, it's okay. Credit them now.
In the English language version, the film is narrated by Alexandra Stewart, who has an incredible voice, so silky, kind of transatlantic a little bit.
Oh, sure, a little bit.
It was like,
a hint.
I loved it.
Wonder if she's related to Jimmy Stewart.
Perhaps. She's the love child of Jimmy Stewart and Katharine Hepburn, and she just has a transatlantic accent.
There you go. She was born on the set of Philadelphia Story.
Yes.
I love, Vertigo was our first ever episode. And in that episode, I talked about what Vertigo means to me as someone that's from just outside San Francisco. And also just like that was an early film for me that got me into films. Like I was always into movies. And when I saw Vertigo, it was like a very distinct turning point in my life of like, oh my God, like films can be this. And so I love the pilgrimage stuff as someone who's done a lot of that. Gone to like the locations from Vertigo. So him going in the 70s or early 80s, like a lot of the stuff looked the same. And even now, like you go to the
plastic horse.
Yeah, you go to the Mission. Like I was just in awe of like how everything looked the same. Like,
is the horse still there? Is my question.
You know what? I'm pretty sure the horse is still there.
That's awesome.
Like in this film, the only thing that Hitchcock added was the tower as a matte painting.
Yes, because Chris Marker was not primarily a filmmaker. He was a writer, essayist.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. I just love seeing his love of movies show.
Well, sometimes he was like a script doctor too. I think he did a
Was
pass
he?
on like Dunstan Checks In.
Your jokes are
They're so lame.
today.
They're lame as fuck. I'm sorry. There's something about the Vertigo stuff. And I think too, what about it is so cool is he's kind of ahead of the curve here. Because again, we talked in our Vertigo episode about when it came out, it was a disaster.
Right.
And no one liked it. And it wasn't until the 80s, and I think it was like the mid or late 80s, that it began to be reassessed.
Mm-hmm.
So for Chris Marker in 1983, but probably the 70s, embraced the movie in such a way. I mean, he was one of the earlier people. And he talks in the film too about having seen it like 19 times or something.
Or Sandor writes to the narrator that,
Yeah.
a film I've seen 19 times.
Yeah.
But let's talk about, this is a good segue into like the whole personal of it. So like about that bar, right? That's like the La Jetee bar. Like that is a big, and that seemed like such a big deal that wasn't vocalized more in the movie to me. Like after I went on a deep dive of this bar. Like I need to go to this bar and I will report when I'm there.
Yeah. Why don't you post on the social media?
I will. I'll do a live stream.
Do a live stream.
Oh my God.
Go live.
I should.
Follow us at Seen and Heard Pod on Instagram.
There you go for a live stream of the La Jetee bar. It seemed like such a big deal to me. Like he went to this bar that was named after his own movie. Like someone loved his movie that much that they opened this bar and they named it after him. So then I went back and I reread, first of all, the whole transcript of this movie is available online. Like you can read the whole essay essentially.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
They have this?
Someone posted
I'm
it.
just kidding. I'm sorry.
How is that a joke?
I'm sorry.
So I went back and I read, and what is being said over these images of the bar in which there are pictures of La Jetee is the small bar in Shinjuku, I guess that's where it is, reminded him of that Indian flute whose sound can only be heard by whomever is playing it. He might have cried out if he was in a Godard film or a Shakespeare play, where should this music be?
Oh, yeah.
So this flute that can only be heard by the person playing it in this bar named after the movie that he made.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing.
No, that's cool.
I think that's incredible.
Also, shout out to Shinjuku. I stayed there when I stayed in Tokyo. It's
Really?
great. Yeah.
But
I wish I'd known.
Yeah.
I didn't go.
I did learn about this bar though. You have to pay a cover to get in.
Well, yeah, that's a lot of bars.
In Japan? I don't know.
Well, it depends how cool it is.
And then apparently there's a cover in some of these bars if you don't speak Japanese.
That's great. I'm all for that.
Did you know about that?
No.
I think from
Still
what
now
I looked,
or when he made the film?
like now.
Oh, that's great. I
I'll
support
do more
that.
research. I don't know, but
People
I saw a
gots to
few
be
things
brushing
like
up.
yeah. Anyway, he is purposefully making this person who cares more about others than himself. You know, like this whole idea of Sandor, and like he says, like the simple joys he had never felt returning to a country, a house, a family home, but 12 million anonymous inhabitants could supply him with them.
That's a great line.
It's so good. It was almost my favorite sound. And there's this great shot of like when that's happening. This was almost my favorite like combined sight and sound of this motorcyclist's reflection in his rear view mirror. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That like really stuck with me. Because like, I don't know, Greg. I get he should not have called anyone yellow, but I don't really get the kind of glass mirror thing you're saying. I feel like he does. I feel like he's a pretty empathetic person who tried to distance himself as much as possible from this movie and like really just go out and capture life.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think he mostly does. That's why I mostly really like this movie. It might sound like I'm being negative. I think it's just because the last time I saw it, I loved it so much, and this was just a little bit less. But just because
that's okay.
There's just a few things that rub me the wrong way. But I get what you're saying. I mean, yeah.
I love the image of the hands holding on in the subway.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Holding
That was
on to
almost my
the
favorite.
handrails and stuff.
Yeah, that was almost my favorite as well.
When you go to Tokyo, and also if this La Jetee bar is in Shinjuku, there's also this like bar district called Golden Guy.
I've heard of it.
Actually,
it's in Golden Guy. This bar, I think, is in Golden Guy. Oh my God.
Okay, well, I went to Golden Guy. I didn't go to this bar. There's a Troll 2 bar. No, but I went to Golden Guy, and it was one of the best nights I had. So you have to go. It's just a series of these bars, and they're all like, there's like room for like 6 people.
Yeah, La Jetée is just like that.
Like I made friends with everyone in the bar that night. Everyone's buying each other drinks.
Yeah, and
great.
like the owner, the woman, like she is the only person who works there, and she's there every night. Like
I must have passed right by it.
I know, and
Jesus.
she makes you like she gives you like a free appetizer when you sit down. I'm so prepared to go to this bar. I hope it's exactly as like what I read online.
It probably will be.
Hopefully. But yeah, I just like this movie is what a great movie to watch before going to Japan.
Yes. Yes.
I was really moved by.
I think that's the strongest stuff in the movie too. Is the Japanese stuff.
Yeah, like just the importance that the Japanese place on these objects that no one else would think about. Like, and he even makes a point to say like that, like Westerners ignore.
Yeah. Little details like the cat shrine.
The cat, but
or the dog. Is it a dog?
So there's the dog, and then there's the woman, the couple whose cat went missing, and they go and pray for it. And they say like, in the end, he returns to them and he says like, basically like the best prayer he heard was just them saying like, wherever you are, I hope you're at peace.
Yeah.
It's so sweet. And then they have the ceremony for the souls of broken dolls. That was incredible. He also said there was a ceremony for like a new building was going to be made.
Oh yeah.
Praying to the gods who own the land. Of course, the story of Hachiko, the dog.
The dog. Yeah. It's so sad.
I know.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's what draws so many Westerners to Japan is that it's such a fascinating culture in the sense that like it's so different from the U.S. Like it's a metropolis, right? Like Tokyo and it's this big city, but in every way the Japanese culture is just so distinctly different, and it is this placement on in America we ignore things. It's like about the big picture, and that's why so many of our buildings and neighborhoods and stuff look terrible. Mm-hmm. And in Japan they value those little details. It's all about these little details, and it's about taking the time out of your day to thank a greater cause, being whatever it is.
Yeah, I love one of my favorite parts of the movie was when he has an image of these girls like praying. I forgot exactly what for. There was something going on in the city, and then you stay on them as they like break away from prayer. Like they're literally praying, and then they like stop, and they just start laughing and like smiling and laughing and walking away.
Yeah.
And he says in it, like in the letter that's being read at that moment, it's a prayer that slips into life without interrupting it. Like it's natural. It's not this far away thing. And I think that's the big theme we're seeing with all of this stuff that the Japanese are praying for in this movie. The dolls, like things that are real and tangible in their life. But also it's so much about the unseen and the non-tangible things.
It's about like, being respectful to the earth and to other people, in a way that Americans are not.
The funeral of the man and the funeral of the panda being the same.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Mm-hmm. I think, there's they take so much more pleasure in those small things in everyday life. And that's why I think so many Westerners are so drawn to Japan, because they just have these. It's such an audio-visual thing. It's like so much of their food, like the texture is so pleasing. It's like.
So what he says about the West, he says, I took the measure of the unbearable vanity of the West that has never ceased to privilege being over non-being, what is spoken to what is left unsaid. This is when he's talking about like he stops and leaves space for the spirit of the broken cars. Like on the when he's walking. Or he said, even if I was expecting no letter, I stopped at the general delivery window, for one must honor the spirits of the torn up letters, and at the airmail counter to salute the spirit of unmailed letters. So it's like all these kind of like mysterious, like unseen things under very tangible objects, like just giving reverence.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah.
let's talk about women, because I think that the movie really places an emphasis on women.
It does.
Definitely. Like, it starts, one of the earliest things I think he's talking about in Guinea-Bissau, like the women choosing their own fiancés.
Right.
And then he talks about like the girls in Tokyo, how like the producers shudder under the girls because they're the ones that choose who the next star will be.
Right. You know what? I hadn't really realized that until you just brought it up.
Yeah, and then of course the gift bags for the girls who are 20, and they all get free calls on that day in Japan. I wonder if that's still a thing. But then like there's no payphones anymore.
That's true. Maybe they still get the goodie bag.
He says something so great. He says all women have a built-in grain of indestructibility, and men's task has always been to make them realize it as late as possible. I think he's talking about the women of Guinea-Bissau in this one.
Right.
The last thing he says, which I love, is it a property of islands to make their women the guardians of memory? That's when he's in Japan in this small island. But yeah, I really noticed like an emphasis of like kind of empowering women in the movie.
You're right.
Like, and I dig it.
Yeah. That sequence with all the women looking to camera. They're all women.
It. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. No, you're right. There's 3 girls.
The 3 girls. Yeah.
Yeah. You're totally right. The narrator is a woman.
Yeah. The narrator is a woman. He goes on to mention like, it's really sad, but that one island, I think it's that same one where the girls killed themselves with a grenade.
The grenade, yeah.
In that ditch.
And then how there's like
grenade
souvenirs.
Souvenir, yeah, across the street.
Yeah, that's wild.
I don't know. I think this movie is so rich.
It is rich.
And I'd like to revisit because I feel like it's not possible to get it all in one sitting.
No.
It's just not.
It's not. It's dense.
Very dense. Extremely. Should we do sight and sound?
Let's do sight and sound.
After we're like, you know what? It's dense. Let's do sight and sound.
I mean,
we talked about a lot.
Yeah, it's, you know.
Is there anything big we're missing?
I don't think so.
I like what he says about young people. He says, like, they're not on the launch pad of life. Like, they are life. And they have to realize that. And Rock is telling them that. It's spreading the news.
That's right. Because they're all sitting and watching. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Well, what is your favorite sight from the film?
I think it is the long shot of people giving their tickets entering the subway.
Why that? I'm curious.
It's just so romantic. Like, there's something so romantic about public transportation, especially in big cities.
Because it's just like society at work.
Movement of people.
Right.
And the way that they're, like, it's the fact that he holds. Because a lot of these shots are not that long.
Mm-hmm.
This one, long. And, like, endless, ceaseless people just coming, like, nonstop. And I think that there's something so powerful in that and overwhelming in that. I always feel like overwhelmed when I'm on public transportation. So I'm just like, and we don't have it here.
We do. It's better than people think it is.
Yeah, but
I've taken
my favorite shot.
Oh, nice. I didn't expect that.
What were you expecting?
Probably the shot of Shrek.
That was a close second.
I don't know what I was expecting. I thought you might pick the woman looking into the camera, which is great and iconic.
Iconic.
Yeah.
That's our picture on the website.
Yeah, great. My site is not really a single image. It's like a whole sequence. I love the sequence with everyone sleeping on the train in Tokyo, intercut with their horror movies on TV.
That's really good.
Just like the dreams of this culture, like the showing people on the bus, like coming home from work, it looked like, and everyone's kind of sleeping and is exhausted and like the low light, and then intercut with these crazy 60s, like in 70s, crazy Japanese horror movies, which I love. It's great.
It was.
Yeah.
I love that sequence.
Yeah.
What about sound?
You know, it's funny. I left this blank.
That's so funny. Hilarious.
Because
I'm cackling.
There was not like a single sound. I guess if I had to pick one, there's a sequence at the end where they have these like drums. I think it's at the location where the grenade pit, but they have these drums and I really like the sound. I knew
you were going to choose that.
Wait, did you know?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's like ASMR.
Yeah.
Rich. Here it is.
So you went with an actual, I mean, this movie has no synced sound.
No, yeah, I didn't go with words. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
I knew you were.
We're so different.
We are.
This is a book. This movie
It's a book.
is an essay.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually, I think, first an essay, then a movie.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you? Favorite sound?
Okay, it's kind of long.
Oh, boy.
But it's kind of towards the end. And it is a quote. I guess it's kind of, I don't even remember what. See, this is my thing. Like, I don't even remember what image is playing over this.
That's okay. It's just the sound anyway.
But that's so interesting. Like, I'm saying, like, it's just interesting how it's not very, that, like I said in the beginning, like, the prose is sticking out to me more. It's towards the end. It's like, it's kind of when the movie's closing. And I guess I'll just play it, right? Because there's no point in me reading it.
Finally, his language touches me, because he talks to that part of us which insists on drawing profiles on prison walls. A piece of chalk to follow the contours of what is not, or is no longer, or is not yet. The handwriting each one of us will use to compose his own list of things that quicken the heart.
Yeah, so it's quite a lengthy quote, but I think it encompasses a lot of the movie and a lot of the themes.
Yeah.
That whole, like, things that quicken the heart. He talks about that previously in I think it's like a legend about some princess or something where she, like, makes a list of things.
Yeah, and it starts with the dancing in Japan, too. That's, like, the first example.
Should we do Pauline?
Yeah, no Pauline for this one. I couldn't find one in the book, State of the Art, her book that covers this period. I couldn't find it in a basic Google search. Couldn't find it either. So no Pauline for Sans Soleil.
Oh, Pauline. I feel like she would like this.
Should we do Letterboxd?
Yeah. This person just hearted it, and it says, I could honestly watch this film several hundred more times in my lifetime. In other news, probably the only time I've ever audibly awed at a penis at the movie.
Oh, that's... We didn't bring up that whole sequence.
Talk about that.
The animals, too.
Yeah.
The taxidermied sex stuff. Boy. I have a 3-star here that says, while I often like experimental documentaries, I found Sans Soleil quite pretentious. I enjoyed some of the film's thoughts on Eastern versus Western cultures, as well as its analysis of certain complex concepts like death and memories. However, the film would often get into tangents that lost me as a viewer. The writer would get lost in metaphors that I didn't grasp onto. At one point, he went on and on about how the Japanese children were aliens, when I think a more straightforward analysis of them might have been more apt and interesting.
When does he talk about them as aliens?
When they're dancing, remember? He's like talking about like their home planet or something. There is like a brief little like, yeah.
This one's really interesting. 5 stars. Probably going to be the last movie I watch before leaving my dorm. Never going to return either to this particular building or to this town ever again in my life. Feeling very strange.
I saw that one. I
love that.
It's beautiful because what better movie to watch? And the movie that deals with time and place. Time is time and place is place. And here we are. Here's a 5-star review that just says, one of the finest movies I've ever seen. Part documentary, part travelogue, part philosophy, part film theory. All pure art film. Sans Soleil destroys time itself. No one is the same after watching.
Wow. 1 star. This is my last one. Someone who didn't like it as much as these others. Marker seems to be the celebrated cinematic incarnation of my freshman year roommate. You know the type, the prematurely cynical philosophy major who says things like, history only tastes bitter to those who expected it to be sugar-coated. Or who says of censorship, it points to the absolute by hiding it. That's what religion has always done. Or calls Pac-Man the perfect graphic metaphor of man's fate. I don't know why I did the voice. Sheesh! I'll give the film credit for having an unintentionally appropriate title, though, since nothing here was particularly enlightening.
Oh, boy. You know what? I like this movie, but in some way I kind of agree with that person.
No.
A little bit.
I don't.
A
He's
little
a
bit.
philosopher.
I know. But also a film is a film, you know? But films can be many
This is
different
an
things.
essay.
No, I know.
Is this a film? Let's talk about that.
Of course it's a film, but like
Yeah.
it's not like films need to be narrative.
No. But he even goes so far as to create, there is some fiction in this movie. Like,
Right.
He's created a fictional person.
Right.
He's
right.
come up with a story.
Right. Yeah, it's honestly actually semi-narrative in a way.
bit.
Yeah. Of course it's a film.
Yeah,
I
agree.
I'm not super drawn to film essays in general. But of all the ones I've seen, absolutely this is like the best. Like this one's pretty great
It's amazing.
with a few hangups I have.
It's amazing. I'm a big nerd, but I will say, like, this is so nerdy. Like, it's stupid, but like, I think News from Home, the Chantal Akerman movie, is like incredible. Like, it touches me on a level that this doesn't even touch me. I don't know why.
It's so interesting because we also did News from Home. Actually, I think we did that the same month we did
Probably
Sans
video
Soleil,
essays.
film essays. And I think with the Ackerman film, I didn't have like a great time watching it, but I like appreciate that one almost like a little bit more because it's so personal. And it's not someone going to other countries and being like, look at the people. Not that I'm not trying to decry. I like this movie. I like this movie a lot. I'm not trying to decry this at all. I just think that I have some problems with it that arose on this viewing.
Interesting.
And I kind of agree with that last review you read of like, yeah, the Pac-Man stuff. Like he's reaching with some of this stuff. It is like a tad annoying, to be honest. A couple things he says are like a tad annoying. I have a 4.5-star review here that just says, "Crispy marker does it again." And then I have one last one. It's a full 5 stars, and the person just says, "One of the benefits of being alive is watching this movie again and again."
That's lovely.
Yeah,
Crispy marker.
obviously the people that this film does touch, it touches very profoundly.
I was touched.
Yeah, I was touched too, intermittently.
Sure. I was very much touched at the end. So his name actually isn't even Chris Marker. So this is another way of his like distancing himself. His name is really long, but his name is Christian with like 3 different last names.
Right.
But he created, as far as I can tell, Marker.
Yeah.
Crispy Marker.
I think he just liked what are those what was the brand markers from when we were kids that had different scents?
Crayola?
No, the ones that like smelled like, this one smells like watermelon, this one smells like bubblegum or
well,
whatever.
I know Crayola had smelly markers.
Was it those?
Probably.
Maybe it was. Is it? I swear to God, every time I hear Chris Marker's name, I just imagine one of those like scented markers.
What color? What smell?
Like a pink one.
So that goes with like fruity flavors and smells.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Every time.
That's so
I just
funny.
now realized.
That's really funny. We'll return to Chris Marker for La Jetee.
Yeah. Chris Marker will return.
He will.
Well, that was Sans Soleil. Our next film. What are we doing next week, Jackie? I think we're doing a big one.
Is it that big?
It's big. Through the magic of ping pong.
We're doing Godfather 2.
Godfather 2. We did do the first Godfather earlier this year. Like, yeah, we had our friend Daisuke Beppu on. It was great. We had a great time with him. Mm-hmm. Next week, we're covering part 2 in all of its glory.
Can't wait.
So come back next week for the second and final chapter in the Godfather saga, Godfather Part 2.
Debatable.
Oh, absolutely.
Debatable.
No, it's not. I just want to shout out everyone that supports us on Patreon, especially our supporters at the highest tier. So special thank you to John Pennington and Cynthia Fordwell. I think that's going to do it for this week. So until next week, I'm Greg.
I'm Jackie.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Seen and Heard is an official podcast of the Arroyo Film Club, featuring Greg Kleinschmidt and Jacqueline Postagian. Theme music by Andrew Cox. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. If you have any questions, comments, or you just want to say hi, email us hello@seenandheardpod.com or visit our website, www.seenandheardpod.com.